face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
As somebody in the chat just said, now we're cooking with oil. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
And I'm Miguel.
And man, we are finally here. We have got a hell of a show for you tonight. This is a conversation we've wanted to have for a while now. And as you can see, we are not doing it alone. We've got 2 very special guests on here. He's been on the show before. Please welcome the Brettman from Good Real Hunting, also sporting Chiefs gear down to the underwear, possibly, maybe. Like it.
That would be next year, actually, because I actually got surprised with a gift like that today. I'm like,
oh,
very awkward gift, but you know what? Badass though. So we're gonna need double or triple the luck if we're gonna be the first ever 3-piece Super Bowl champs.
I love it.
I like it, man. That depending on who a gift like that comes from, that could be really cool or really strange.
I'll say
either way. Either way, it should be washed prior to use. So,
yeah. But we also have Mr. Kyle-Curtis Flett from Flett's Movies and Pop Cultures 13. What's going on, man? Whoop! You are muted, my friend.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'll start that again. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me be here. I think this is my first time being on your channel.
Yep.
And The Shining was one of my very first horror films. So I'm definitely going to do this deep dive with you guys. This is going to be an awesome, epic fun stream.
Yeah,
can't
man.
wait.
We did a watch along for The Shining about 2 weeks ago or so. So if you haven't checked that out, go watch that watch along. But this film, man. I've got my own history, and I kind of want to share about your all's, and I want to hear what your all's first interaction with The Shining was. But I didn't realize that in researching for this episode and preparing to take this deep dive and have this discussion, this has been a little bit different than some of the other films, than taking a deep dive, say, into Halloween or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This film, I didn't realize how many completely polar opposite interpretations that people have about the events of this film. Like, it has kind of blown my mind over the last 2 weeks. Just like listening and reading to people's interpretations and their thoughts on what actually happened, what didn't actually happen. Like, it's kind of wild. And I think it's rare that you have a film that you can say there are so many different meanings and interpretations and just like so many different things that are happening within it. You know what I mean? It's a pretty special film in that regard. So I'm super stoked to really dive into it and kind of sink our teeth or the axe into it, if you will.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But so let's start the conversation here. Well, Brett, we'll start with you. What was your first interaction with The Shining?
My first interaction with The Shining, it comes soft thanks to Brad, because that is his favorite horror movie, pretty much one of his favorite movies of all time. And I was in the realm of starting to get into horror right after, again, with the whole the people in the chat will know my Conjuring story. It's like after that's when Brad kind of like has shared his knowledge and just the movie about The Shining, and that's when I gave it a watch. And at first, I didn't really know what I was watching until he kind of explained it more to me as we were watching it, or as I was watching it. And then I'm like, okay, now I get why this was special. And then on second rewatch, or on rewatch, that is, that's when I really, truly recognized this greatness. And definitely, I would say The Shining is definitely one of the more impactful horror movies of all time, but definitely one to consider as the greatest horror movie of all time. And just real quickly, for the first ever real March Madness tournament we did on our channel for the best 80s movie of all time, The Shining did win in that tournament.
Hey,
Hey.
love to see it, man. Love it. Kyle, what about you, man? What was your first interaction memory with The Shining?
Oh wow, this was my third horror movie I ever seen 26 years ago, back in '98. When I first watched it as a young kid. It sure hit different back then. My goodness, my first impression with this film was, my goodness, it's a Stanley Kubrick masterpiece. It messes with you psychologically every single way. Even the hotel is its own character of a film, and it definitely was a benchmark in horror, especially for Stephen King movies at the time. And this one, it scares you in so many ways, and not just jump scare. It doesn't use jump scares in this. It uses so many, and it created one of the most iconic characters, and played by the legendary Jack Nicholson. This film was definitely an impact on my life. It made me love horror even more. It's one of the best Stephen King adaptations, I think. So.
Yeah, man, I would agree with that. Miguel, was it so our watch along 2 weeks ago, was that your first viewing of The Shining?
I would say with intentions, correct. Yes. With full intentions of watching
Serious
the film,
viewing.
It is. But I have stumbled upon it. I've watched like bits and pieces of it. So it's not to say that I haven't seen the movie at all and I'm just completely naked to the idea of it, like on our first attempt. But I was well understood of the notion that The Shining is without a doubt a pivotal film in the horror genre. And not to say, again, as Flett said, as jump scares and whatnot, it's just a very uneasy, unnerving type of film, and really isolating and playing with your emotions / mind kind of film. And I think those are what you would call a psychological horror, which is pretty much what I would put this film in as. So if you guys agree with me, that's awesome, because when watching this with intentions, I can definitely see how, if you were to watch this, casually as your first time view, you could definitely feel your emotions or mental stability kind of spiral along with with Jack Nicholson's character. So I think that's a really interesting piece of art that was given to us, and again, a wonderful performance by Jack Nicholson as well. So
great.
Yeah, for me, my story's a little weird. For me with The Shining, like I saw this film probably when I was 14, 15 for the first time. I was a fairly new horror fan. I've talked about before, like the Resident Evil video games and the movies, they were my like gateway drug into the horror genre. So I was like, I liked the slasher stuff. I liked, the Rob Zombie stuff. I liked the Texas Chainsaw remake. And I remember sitting down and watching The Shining for the first time, and kind of bouncing off of what you said, Brett, very much like the critic response to The Shining when it first released. I didn't really know what to make of it. I was very underwhelmed the first time I saw it. The lack of blood and the lack of kills. There's really only one kill scene. I mean, Jack does at the end, but that's not really it's just a strange cut where we see him like, you know what I mean, dead, frozen in the maze. So it's like,
it's a body count. We're counting it.
It's strange. It doesn't feel. It didn't take my breath away the first time I saw it, but I think the more that I've watched it, and the more that I kind of, you learn more about what it's trying to say, even not in relation to the film, just like in growing up and becoming an adult and finishing school and things like that. Like you learn more about like the significance of when they're talking about, like the Native American burial ground and the themes of like domestic violence and things like that. Like I think as an adult, you feel the gravity of that a little bit more than you do as a kid. As a kid, I was just like, dude, why are people not dying? Like, like where's this one kill? That's it.
People were like, I want to see action. I want to see people die. I want access to people's faces. That pretty much how it's gotta go.
Yeah.
Legit. So I think it underwhelmed me at first, but the more and more I've watched it, the more and more I've gained an appreciation for it. And in the last 2 weeks, my appreciation for it has skyrocketed. Just because I've always had my interpretation, and we'll talk about the interpretation in just a minute, but I've always had my interpretation of what was happening. But reading and hearing about everyone else's, I was just like, holy crap, there is no one way to take what happens in this film, period. And it's pretty wild. So yeah, it's taken it some time to grow on me, but I'm glad that, you know, I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad that it's grown on me to the level that it has. So that's what I'll say about that. And I forgot to say hello to everybody in the chat. If I told them before we went on, Google kicked me out of literally everything, so that's why it was a struggle trying to get on. But
you can be honest. You can be honest with them. It was me. I talked Kansas City football for like 10 minutes. So.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. Rosie's here. What's up? Zodiac Z, what's going on, buddy? Ashton is here. Brooke is here. I think that's all we got for now. Who is that guy? Whatever.
I apologize for that asshole.
I don't
Man.
recognize that person.
And Veronica, what's up, Veronica? Nice to see you. Nice to have you in the chat. So The Shining released on May 23rd, 1980. It was based upon Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name. Stephen King famously despises this film. He cannot stand it for many different reasons. I would guess, I mean, I'm not 100% sure why, but my guess would be because they changed so much about it. Because there are a lot of things, you know, much like the Harry Potter series or anything else, there is a lot that was left out or that was changed, particularly about the end of the film. You know, I remember reading like that. I've never read The Shining. Has anybody ever read it?
No.
The first chapter, if then I put it down, realizing I was not a reader.
Yeah.
I think I've always told myself I wanted to read like the book that these films were like adapted from, but then I remembered that I enjoyed watching movies a lot more than reading. So no.
Yeah.
But I do give the respect, though, that the books are better than movies in most cases.
Right.
Absolutely,
I would agree.
without a doubt. Yeah,
100%.
And I think, you know, part of the big question, I think, with The Shining is you have to ask yourself, you know, the changes that were made from the book and the direction and the different interpretations of how you can take the story and the events of the story and what's happening, was that a conscious choice? Obviously, to change and diverge from the book was a conscious choice on Kubrick's part, but were all of the different interpretations and the deeper meaning and the overanalyzation of every tiny, minute detail in the film, was that really in Kubrick's mind? Did he plan all of that out? Or in true Bob Ross faction energy, was that just a happy accident, you know? Like, did he really plan for there to be that many interpretations? Did he really plan on, you know, using things and these different metaphors of the maze and Jack looking over the maze to represent, like, you know, I forget what the name of it is. I've been trying to remember all afternoon. I read somewhere that the Jack standing over top of the maze and seeing Wendy and Danny in the middle of it is like it's a metaphor for some type of Greek mythological creature type deal, you know. And I just wonder if all of that really was going through his head or not when he was making the film. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that was a conscious choice to be that deep and that philosophical about it?
I think it was Stanley Kubrick's, you know, mind to go in that deep direction, especially deep dive into what he did in the film. I think it was more his mind, genius mind, to go to where it went. And this movie is more like more story character driven than anything, especially the relationship that goes on in that hotel. So I 100% that I think it's Stanley Kubrick's decision to where the movie went. And for sure.
I definitely agree with you, Kyle. I definitely think this was easily Kubrick's what he wanted to do. It's just like when you're given such a task of like just taking somebody else's work and making it your own, it's always mainly going to be because like there's some instances, like example Mike Flanagan, he does everything in his power to respect the books, and I think he does a phenomenal job, aka Dr. Sleep. I'm not sure how much of Dr. Sleep talk we'll have into it, but I do suggest it is absolutely fantastic. And watch the longer version of the movie, not the regular
Yeah, the
version. Watch
director's
the
cut.
longer version
Yes,
because that
yes.
will indeed change your life and also get you a controversial opinion, which I'll probably not the episode to say it, but if y'all are nice enough, I might say it. But back to Kubrick. I was just using an example, that it's just all depends on what the creator wants to do. And Kubrick
Right.
definitely had his own unique vision into this, and then he just went ahead and did it. Did Stephen King like what he did? Absolutely not. But I would think Stephen King will at least had to respect Kubrick of what he did and just to stick to his guns of his vision alone. Another
Yeah.
example I can use is like Rob Zombie taking John Carpenter's Halloween, and
Mhm.
John Carpenter at least gave him advice. Make it your own. And that's why I
Yeah.
really suggest to anybody copying somebody else's work, make it your own. Unless if you're just Mike Flanagan, just want to just do a complete respect out the book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I love that man to death. I think he's definitely
Yeah.
one of the great directors of our time. But Kubrick, though, I respect what he did, and just the mindset that he had going into making that movie, and it just turned out to be a perfection movie.
Yeah. I should have mentioned this actually, and I didn't. And Ashton, I'm gonna throw your comment up here because I almost agree. Like I that may make people like unsub from the channel, but like I low key kind of enjoyed The Shining, or enjoyed Dr. Sleep more than I enjoyed watching The Shining. Now, to be fair, I haven't watched Dr. Sleep in a couple years. But Dr. Sleep made me appreciate The Shining so much more. Like, and it's weird because that's a film that came out 40 years apart from the original. Like, that's a pretty big deal, you know? For a film, I think, to really feel like a true sequel. But yeah, I adored Dr. Sleep, and I can't wait to I can't wait to. We're gonna take a deep dive into that next, and I'm super
it's
stoked to do that.
Oh,
That's
you
the
know.
controversial comment. Ashton stole my. Damn you, Ashton, stealing my thunder. But no,
Yeah.
Ashton's absolutely right, though. If you do the regular Doctor Sleep over The Shining, it'll still be The Shining,
No,
but it's that
yeah.
extended cut that
It's
just
baller.
makes it
Oh, yeah.
everything, and that's why I say that Doctor Sleep is better than The Shining. I know, controversial opinion.
And it's one that I agree with. Miguel hasn't seen Dr. Sleep, and I've hyped it up quite a bit, so
Do it.
I'm pretty
Do it.
excited.
Next watch party.
Miguel, I'm really sorry, but we are watching the extended cut, and it is a long haul. It's like almost 3 hours long,
But
right?
it's
I mean,
so worth it.
it's like 2 hours and 40 something minutes. The extended cut. Like,
flies.
it's a lot.
It flies.
But it does not feel like it because it's so good. I mean, like
It engages you.
it really
Does
Yeah,
it?
like you get so into the story and the characters, but at the time it's just non-existent.
yeah.
And I'm
Well,
good
and
with
it-
that. Yeah, if I'm
it-
always down for the ride, and if the story is gripping enough, I mean, the 3 hours would definitely just breeze
Yeah.
right by. I'm not.
Then you're
concerned
you're
about that.
covered.
There you go.
And it really does feel like a true like chapter 2. You know what I mean? Like you can look
Yeah.
at like it's the first thing that's coming to mind as I'm looking at my Myers thing right here. But like if you look at, you know, I don't know, Halloween 6. Does Halloween 6 really have the vibe of Halloween 78? No, it's its own thing, even
Definitely
though, yes,
not.
it's a sequel. But, like, this truly, like, when they're in the Overlook at the end of the film, spoiler alert, sorry, Miguel, but you had to know it came back at some point. Context clues, man. Like, when they're in the Overlook and stuff at the end, like, it just feels like they're in the Overlook from the original movie. Like, it does, you know what I mean? Obviously, it's run down, but, like, it doesn't feel any different, you know? And I don't know. Mike Flanagan, man, like,
Yeah.
telling you, big Mike Flanagan fan, if I could speak. So The Shining was written by Stanley Kubrick. He did 2001. He had done A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, and he had also co-written it with Diane Johnson, which I gotta say, I thought it kind of gave me a chuckle when I read this. Kubrick just seems like the dude who just doesn't give like two shits about what anybody thinks, because this lady, Diane Johnson, that he co-wrote it with, he had been like, I really want to adapt one of your books, like I really do. And then he read The Shining and he was like, never mind, but you're going to help me write this. Like, I'm skipping out on your book, but you're still going to help me write The Shining too, which I just think is really funny. But it had a budget of $19 million. The box office total was just under $50 million. So it did fairly well. I read this quote that I wanted to share. I had this in my notes. Stephen King was told that Kubrick had his staff bring him stacks of horror books as he planted himself in his office to read them all. And Kubrick's secretary heard the sound of each book hitting the wall as the director flung it into a reject pile after reading the first few pages. Finally, one day, the secretary noticed it had been a while since she had heard the thud of another writer's work biting the dust. She walked in to check on her boss and found Stanley Kubrick deeply engrossed in reading a copy of the manuscript of The Shining. So he had gone through quite a few different works before he was like actually dead set on one. And I think I remember him. They may say it in Room 237 if you've seen the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Kubrick had said like it's not that The Shining is some like incredible piece of literature. I think that might be a little harsh. I think it's pretty damn good. But he was very impressed by like the layers and by how well the story was constructed, so I think that's I think that was his draw to it, was the fact that the story is so well tied together and so well thought out. He even said, there was another quote, this is a direct Kubrick quote. It's a tongue twister. He said, "There's something inherently wrong with the human personality. There's an evil side to it. One of the things that horror stories can do is show us the archetypes of the unconscious. We can see the dark side without having to confront it directly." And I find that quote interesting because that's kind of the metaphor of the entire film. You have, looking at the characters, it's not a huge cast of characters. There's really, 3 or 4 main characters. Mm-hmm. And then there's Grady, and there's the owner, and really that's about it. The main, the pizza itself is Jack and Wendy and Danny and Dick Halloran. But I think looking at the different characters, even Jack, starting with Jack, I think. Let me ask you this. This goes into the interpretation. What do you think the true meaning of things is? Going all the way back to the initial scene when he's at the interview, after we've driven through, we've followed the camera, him driving to the overlook for the interview. Do you think Jack had intended before the overlook to kill his family?
I'd probably say there's some kind of yes to it. Just because, again, due to his alcoholism that he had, that it probably crossed his mind a couple of times. But then that's when, the hotel really just took his deepest thoughts and laid them out on the table, and to use that against him in order to do the hotel or the Overlook Hotel's bidding. So I would say there's some truth into that.
Yeah.
Same here. I think he had some attention, but I think the hotel really took advantage of that and just jumped into his demons and really took him to that mindset and to go there. So.
Yeah, I think that's why the hotel was so easily, it latched itself onto him so easily. I mean, there's really no looking at Jack's character from start to finish, there's not a huge arc for him. I mean, he's already a really damaged, really whatever character, and I think he seems like the person, you can tell. I mean, even in the scene when they're driving to the overlook, he can't stand Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem
he had
like
a
he
level of
cares about
contempt
her.
to himself and the relationship,
right?
And then I would say out of the entire cast, he was probably the weakest of mind, which is why the hotel latched onto him. If I were to gauge every character that was in the film, I would say he was the one that was probably more susceptible to the hotel's manipulation due to his alcoholism and his contempt for the life that he has.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another interesting thing, again, I had read this, I never thought about this, and they talk about this in Dr. Sleep, but Danny talking about alcohol suppresses The Shining. like it suppresses your ability to shine. And I think it's interesting that Jack was a recovering alcoholic. He had just stopped drinking. So I think that made it all the easier for the hotel to latch on to him, you know? Another really important question. Does Jack shine? I kind of think he might. Whether he realizes it or not, I think Jack might have the shining. I don't know if he's as strong as Danny. I think Danny's pretty damn strong because I think the hotel would have tried to latch itself onto Danny.
I think the shine is probably a term that I'm not fully aware from just from watching The Shining, so I'll stay there.
I mean, do you think it's possible that Jack shined?
Nope, Veronica just said what I was thinking right there. It's just that he's actually weak because, and that's another thing too, with the whole alcoholism kind of theme into his character, and it's also a realistic thing too. Sometimes, like no matter how hard you try to beat alcoholism, unfortunately, you just don't win, and that's mainly due to a weak mindset. And I feel like that's what the Overlook Hotel kind of resembled to. Is just the alcoholism just taking over Jack's whole mentality, and just you can obviously tell at that one particular time of the movie where Jack goes to the bar, and gets his Tennessee whiskey neat. So good call, Jack. Tennessee whiskey, my man. Jack Daniels, that is. But I feel like that's what they were trying to indicate, and I absolutely agree with Veronica. It's just Jack was too weak in order to make that full change.
Definitely,
he was
hotel,
already too damaged. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The hotel just took over his weaknesses and showed it full form, and he couldn't go back, unfortunately.
And I like what Rosie said too about Jack was already violent too. For Jack Nicholson's portrayal as Mr. Torrance, absolutely. But from the book, I kind of disagree with that. Unless if the book already established him being violent. But again, I do not have much knowledge of the book. That's why I was hoping Brad would be on here because he definitely knows the book.
Well, and see, the thing is too, like, we know that they're obviously, like, Wendy, when she's meeting with the doctor at the beginning of the film after Danny has the incident in the bathroom and she's talking to the doctor and things like that. Like, it's very clear that Wendy is hiding more than she knows about Jack. We know that Jack, Danny knocked his pages off the table and he grabbed him and he hurt his shoulder or whatever. Like, we know that there's physical abuse there. But there are a lot of horror fans that also think there was some kind of sexual abuse happening between Jack and Danny, and that there's more than meets the eye there. And that also ties in with the whole scene when Danny goes into room 237, how he got the marks on his neck and things like that, which we'll get there in a little bit. But, I think Jack is... he's abusive. Like, Kubrick said in that quote, there is an inherent dark side to the human personality. And we're going to get, let me find it. Veronica, you made a comment a little bit ago. The hotel is a character, and we're going to get to that too, because I wholeheartedly believe the hotel may be the most interesting character.
Yeah, it is.
In this entire thing. But I think that's why the hotel was so it was so easy to get to Jack, because he already had those violent tendencies, and it didn't really hit me until we did our watch along. But in the scene where in the interview, Jack has the good interview, he's being kind, he's being polite or whatever, when the owner starts, I forget his name. What's the owner's name?
Let me look, because I got the whole letterbox just in case.
I had it pulled up on IMDb,
Delbert?
but Ullman, that's his name, Mr.
No,
Ullman.
Yeah.
Mr. Altman.
Yeah. So when Mr. Ullman is telling him about Dilbert Grady, or as he knows him, what's the other name? I forget. Because Grady has two different names. We know him as Dilbert Grady in the bathroom, but then the murderer was a different Grady.
Oh, really? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, which also goes into the weird, like, reincarnation thing. Like, there's kind of an undertone of reincarnation, like, you know, and things like that, with like seeing Jack in the picture at the end of the film where it's like dated backwards. Like, is the Jack that chased Danny around Charles Grady? You're right. Thank you, Special Agent Danner Bobanner. I love that name, dude. That's
If
awesome.
you're talking about
Charles
anybody that loves The Shining, it's that guy right there.
Sweet. Glad to have you, Danner Bobanner.
Hey, Danner. How you doing?
So yeah, Charles Grady. So when he's telling him the story about Charles Grady, he's like, you know, there was a murder that happened here. You know, this guy took an axe to his wife and his 2 daughters. You know, the entire time he's telling you that story. Go back and watch the scene. Jack is like he's so intrigued until the moment where he says, and then he blew his brains out, and then Jack is like, oh, like it's like the high, you know. Like it's like he's edging, like the high, like he released at that moment. You know what I mean?
Question about that, actually, just when I think about it, is it that he's intrigued, or is it kind of like he's under a little bit of what we call hypnosis, kind of like a trance, trying to, you know, warp his mind a little bit?
Well, it makes you wonder: has he fantasized about it?
Maybe he's like, oh,
because he did have that dream,
right? Right.
I think he was fantasizing. He's like, we're alone. What can I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and in another YouTube video I was listening to on my commute to work the other morning, somebody had made the comment like, you know, really, if he wanted to, I mean, obviously, without the paranormal, supernatural ghost element to the Overlook, if he wanted to, he could have killed Danny and Wendy in the hotel and burned the hotel down and been like, I was the only one who made it out. And then written a book about it. And he could have had his fame, and he would have been rid of Danny and Wendy too. You know what I mean? Like, if he wouldn't have been possessed, he very, very well could have gotten rid of them and gotten exactly what he wanted too. So like, it makes you wonder, did he ever fantasize or think about it? Like you said, Brett, he dreamt about it. You know, he flat out told Wendy. I thought that was weird too, because like, that's a weird thing. Your wife just found you having a nightmare. And like immediately he was like, I dreamt I killed you and chopped you up into little pieces. And she's like, oh,
maybe we should put you back to sleep.
Yeah.
Like that's a strange thing to just like, boop, as soon as you wake up and lead with that, but, you know. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I found that whole opening scene when they're in the interview room and they're talking, and he seems so like intrigued. It's the same look he has when he's watching Wendy and Danny out the window, and he's got the whole like.
No, I think that was
like,
a little
drooling
more
face
dramatic
thing, you know?
than.
Yes, that was more dramatic, but it had the same vibe to it, where he's definitely like fantasizing in his head type deal. You know what I mean?
That's me at Asian buffet.
Yeah. Sitting there like you're holding your plate and you're just like.
It's what
especially at the hibachi section at the buffet. And you're just
Yeah. Rosie said, "Wendy, grab your kid and Stiggs and run."
Talk about the most like anxious I've ever been in a horror movie. Just during my young horror movie watching career, then watching that whole cigarette ash, just paying attention to it. Like, when's that son of a bitch gonna fall?
I know, right? Like she's gonna burn the Overlook down herself, and it bends. Like you watch it go like.
Oh my god! I know. I was just like, "Would you just drop already?" Like I can't even concentrate on the movie without knowing this.
Yeah, I think it's like a thing. That's a thing that smokers like to do. Is like they like to see how far the ashes can go. I think. How far are they getting going?
Yeah. Raymond asked a good question. Do you think that the owner, Mr. Ullman, knew that what happened to Jack could, or what happened to Charles could happen to him when he hired him? Like, do you think he knew that the same thing could happen to Jack that happened to Charles Grady?
Potentially, he thinks it could happen.
That's interesting.
Well, do you think the owner is part like, you know, he's in on it too? Is that what like
I don't know.
I don't think so, but he's like potentially bad stuff could still happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mindset on that is that. Like, kind of like my mindset on that. It's kind of like, let's just a little analogy. It's the realtor for trying to sell the Conjuring house. Oh, hey, what's up? So I don't know how to do that. Like, it's just, but anyways, sorry, got distracted there. But the realtor for the Conjuring house trying to sell the Conjuring house, bad shit is going on with the place you're trying to sell, but business is hurting and you need to make the money. So, and you need to
A deal's a deal.
like take care of your property. So kind of like again with the Overlook Hotel, the owner of it, he knows bad shit happens. He knows there's something freaky with it, but you gotta keep business booming. So you gotta do what you gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, and he even talks about like the Native American burial ground and things like that. You know, he talked about when they were building the Overlook, 80 years ago or whatever, like, not only is the hotel built on an ancient burial ground, but they had to repel Native American attacks on the construction workers. So like, A, that it's built on a burial ground. Like that's already like, that's a big no-no. Like have you seen Poltergeist? Like, no. Number two, like people have already died there. People have already been murdered there before the hotel was even built. And then 3, you've got this dude that went crazy and killed his wife and children with an axe. Like that's a heck of a pitch to be like, do you want to keep your family here for 6 months? Cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like and again, that goes right back into, it almost makes you question, like, because Jack wasn't bothered by it at all. He was just kind of like, okay, like, he just went.
Well, you
into
got to
it.
understand what he was getting right there.
Question
He was getting a hotel to himself during a winter storm where he can write his
Right.
book. Like he was getting almost everything a writer would want. He was getting everything that old buddy wanted from Misery. A cabin, deep in the woods where he can write his book. Like so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been frightened by that deal, even with those stories. I'd say.
Yeah. Tanner Bobanner said Wendy's Ash was more suspenseful than the Shining miniseries.
That's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. So Wendy, do you think? I was also another thing I was kind of shocked to see is how many horror fans believe that Wendy is partially guilty for all of this because she didn't want to confront the abuse. Jack
she does whine a bitch a lot.
She does. I'll tell you, I used to think her performance sucked in this movie until I realized the pure hell she went through with Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that I was like, okay. Because there are so many moments where she's just like, Jack! And it's just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But then you think about that, the mental and physical exhaustion, even like in room 237, it was straight abuse. Like he abused her on set.
Yeah,
100%. The staircase scene with the baseball bat, like, I believe they did that take like 124 times or something like that in a row.
Good Lord. Poor Jack falling down the stairs all those times.
And that's another thing. Like, do you think, her hair was falling out? And there's a moment, if you watch that behind the scenes clip, she's sitting in the chair and she's like, hair's like, she's crying. And she's like, hair, literally hair is falling out of my head. That's how stressed she had to go to the hospital. She had like severe physical issues because of the stress imposed on her in the production of this film. And it makes you wonder, was that intentional? Did he really not like her? Was it personal? Or did he do that so that her performance would be that visceral and that real and that, whatever? Like, it's crazy, man.
Like, you think she'd probably want her not only act, I guess it's kind of somewhat of a form of method acting, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like forced method acting.
Like a forced method, yeah, which, sounds kind of icky. But nonetheless, I mean, I wouldn't put past Kubrick's attempt at it. So.
Probably, and then he took it way too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Taking it way too far, and just throw it out there too. I know Shelley Duvall took a beating, and I'm not talking about like a beating. I'm more like beating, but like Jack Nicholson did too. Like, damn, Kubrick is so evil. He fed that man cheese sandwich, which is a regular slice of regular cheese, not melted or anything, on a plain old bland piece of bread. Because there's nothing Jack Nicholson hates more in the world. It's that combination right there, and that's what made him mad too. Just to get that method acting.
I could have
Yeah.
sworn that was Jack that wanted to do that. I didn't think that was like Kubrick that wanted to.
I'm pretty sure, like from what like you could be absolutely right, but like from like a story I heard that was Kubrick doing. It's just Jack requested this, but Kubrick gave him that to eat on, and Jack Nicholson absolutely said, "I hate this. I don't want to eat it," and
Like,
then
he
they forced him
purposely
to
gave
eat
him
it.
food that he didn't like, just
to make him
angry.
pissed off and mad. To again, like you said, use it for method acting. So there's some genius to Kubrick's like his, even though it's all wrong, but there's some brilliance into that. But you can never pull that kind of stuff off in today's age. There's
no,
you won't be able
well,
to.
like Mia Goth, I'm looking at you with your whole like kicking in the head. So
yeah.
But Kubrick, that was just Kubrick's style to get the performance of his actors. That's how he was. Genuinely.
And I think that was like part of like, I guess it's kind of like how like the hotel was kind of like messing with your mind kind of thing. Like they wanted like even like you get so like I'm sure like the director wanted like psychological like horror going towards like the actors too, just so that they could play their characters the same way he would want them to play. You know how he treated them throughout the film. Which again, Mia Goth would. It'd be troublesome for her, but yeah.
You know,
sorry, I had a light bulb go. Sorry, I had a light bulb that just went off when I was reading the comments here. Where does it go? Zodiac said there's always a method to madness with Kubrick. Sorry, this is what Zodiac said. He said talk about suffering for your art, and Standard also mentioned an insane perfectionist. What if a little bit of Stan Kubrick's interpretation of Jack Torrance is Kubrick himself? Because again, the author, like Jack Torrance is a perfectionist with his writing, and he gets so pissed off when he's easily distracted because he just wants to perfect it. Kubrick is that exact same way. So what if Kubrick put a little bit of his own personality into the Jack Torrance character of his version?
I can 100% see that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Stephen King wrote The Shining after his wife, he and his wife stayed at the Timberland Lodge, and they were like two of the last guests before it closed for the winter. And he spent like the evening like wandering around the hallways of this massive hotel, and he thought about this like, you know, that's where he came up with the idea. And I think there's a lot of like not wanting to murder your family, but the frustrated writer aspect of Jack's character. I think there's a lot of Stephen King in that character. So I think that's really interesting that you made the point of like, what if Stanley Kubrick was putting a little bit of himself in Jack as well? You know, that's interesting right there. You know, and it's just it makes you feel bad for her, especially because she's kind of like a recluse now. Like she. You know, have you seen a recent picture of her? I mean, you know, I mean, I think she's all okay. I hope
she
that
said
this
it was
wasn't.
Without a doubt, one of the most difficult roles she's had to play.
I hope this wasn't the thing that like did her in, you know. But I mean, when you see video of her, I mean, she had to pause to go vomit during, you know, she'd literally puke during takes, and her hair was falling out, and her eyes were like the tear ducts in her eyes were clogged because she had to cry so much and things like that. And then you see Stanley Kubrick and he's like, well, I don't feel sympathy for you. You know, it's just like, dang, man, like, okay, you know, like
what I love the most is that like her you know, filmography, like her most notable ones I'd say is The Shining and playing as Olive Oy in Popeye.
Yeah.
I think it's like the most polar opposite you could probably imagine of a film. So I think that's hilarious.
And it was great to see her after 20 years do a movie now, though.
Yes, yeah. Ray Malabar said if they were to do another remake, not saying they should, but if they did, Bill Skarsgård should play Jack and Mia Goth should play Wendy. I could see Mia Goth as Wendy. I do not see Bill Skarsgård as Jack.
No.
I do not see that at all.
I'm actually the opposite. I can't see Mia Goth because the problem with Mia Goth now is she's cast like she has a particular
typecast.
Typecast. That's the problem because I can only see her play crazy. I can't see her play any other role. Wendy's crazy one. If they wanted to, because again we're in the 2020s, so they want to make Mia Goth a female Jack Torrance. That I can like
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I would watch that. I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, this is just too forced and all that." I was like, no, this actually would be a very unique interpretation of the Shining story. Why not mix it up even more? Like, what are you going to do worse? Because again, Stephen King hated what Kubrick did with The Shining. So is he going to hate what happens next?
It's already hated by the author, so
Yeah.
why not go ahead? Why not go everywhere?
Yeah, just piss him off even more. I say.
Yeah.
So.
That would be a different.
What up, Gory?
Definitely.
Gory.
Hey, Gory.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because Jack Nicholson talking about it too. He had even said like another crazy aspect of Stanley Kubrick's madness is the fact that he would change the drafts of the script so much. Like they would be learning lines, and like 10 minutes before they filmed the scene, he would hand them a new draft. And even some of the crew members had said Jack Nicholson would get handed a new draft of the script right before they filmed a scene, and he would just trash it because he was like, I'm done reading new drafts of this. Like, you expect us to have our lines memorized, and you're getting pissed that we're not ready to film a scene, but you keep changing it so many times that we can't keep up with it. So it's just, he seems like an interesting character, and I wonder again, was all of that really
mind games? Mind games to get them ready for what they're
about. Was he just playing mind games, and was he trying to get him amped up and emotional, or
no? I do think it was
really just
mind games.
That much of a perfectionist, and that much of a like he couldn't stop changing it, making it better, and changing it, and doing different things different. It's a lot, but
when you hear of a director
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead, Brad. Or excuse Miguel, sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, like, whenever you hear of like a director or a film going through like rewrites, you automatically assume like that movie's probably going to be doomed to fail, which is interesting to hear like how much Stanley Kubrick just kept rewriting scripts. Like in today's world, that would be like immediate cause for like, oh, this is going to be a trash movie. But I mean. Kudos for is Kubrick's perfectionist, just continually wanting to write the perfect line for every single scene, is in and of itself really interesting to see that unfold. And Jack Torrance's like, I guess, writer's block that he had, where like he wanted the perfect he wanted the perfect time, perfect moment to write his book, but he just was not getting it. So I think that frustration is kind of like a personification of Kubrick's perfectionist, and how he treated the film as a whole. So,
100%, because I think Jax was trying to get peaceful and quiet, but there was so much interference at that hotel. It was driving nuts as well.
I know,
and
empty hotel too.
Empty hotel. Just him.
But so many distractions. Jesus Christ.
So many distractions. And then even Danny, what he was doing, and then he was seeing those twins, which is an iconic scene.
Well, even when he's writing and Wendy walks up to him, I think, was he sleeping? Was he asleep when he goes off on Wendy and he's like, I'm trying to focus, and he screams at her and kind of goes off on her for the first time. Was he asleep when she found him?
Yes,
or was he working?
So.
Yeah.
Well, because he says like, every time you interrupt me, you're distracting me, and he kind of like goes off, and she's kind of like, oh,
like,
okay.
Bitch, you asleep?
Bye. You know what I mean? So, it's their dynamic is very interesting. But then you also have the dynamic of Danny and Dick Halloran, which is a whole other world too.
Can we just say Dick is the fucking man?
Dude,
because here's why I say that, because his house, it looked like he's a freaking pimp. He does like pimp work on the side, because if you look above his freaking bed with that picture of that woman, like Dick's the man. Like, what kind of lifestyle is he living?
Oh yeah, because even the one that more like the I think the keeper of the place that that explains them for where all the food is and everything.
God, he's the keeper of a pimp. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure, Brett.
Because like what his freaking painting choices, it's just like, man, Dick is something like you love to hang out like 2:00 in the morning out at a random bar talking about Shining stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna have to go off though. But thank you guys for having me. We'll have to do this again. So next time I'll be here though, on for the whole time. But no, I appreciate you guys for having me for this, and this was a blast. And we'll have to do this again soon. So. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here, Kyle.
Thank you. We'll do this again soon.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
just remember before you go, I'm going to leave you with this.
Go ahead.
All work and no play makes you a dull boy. Keep that in mind.
100%. All right, 100%.
Read the paper.
See you, man.
See you guys.
Take care.
Yeah, see you, Betty. Yeah, so
That's a
and then there
fun
were
story
three.
for another time. But
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this would be a perfect time for Brad to show up, bro. Come on.
it would be, man, because he loves The Shining. I'm telling you, man, like he loves The Shining more than anybody
Yeah.
that I ever know. Like it's literally his not only favorite horror movie of all time, but actually his favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. Sounds
No
like
worries.
it.
I'm just goofing around.
I know.
But so the relationship between Danny and Dick, they are obviously the two that shine, like 100% shine. Jack, you could make an argument. I could see either way for saying Jack shines or not. Like I could see. I lean towards the fact that he doesn't, but there's also a slight argument for the fact that he does. That could go either way. But 100% for certain, Dick. Yeah, it's Dick and Doc.
That sounds like a
Dick and Doc,
Saturday
Danny and Doc.
cartoon at 9:00 with a bowl of cereal.
Dick and Doc. I like it. But Dick and Danny do shine. And Danny obviously does not have the vocabulary and the know-how of what he can do. He just knows that he can do it. He's never talked about it. We know that he's got Tony. We've got Tony,
Not
you know.
supposed to talk about it.
And then Dick kind of explains to him, you know, like he talks about his grandmother, and he says, you know, I love that scene of them sitting at the table talking when he kind of explains it to him, and he's like, you know, you have like I know you can do this, and he's, you know, he says that him and his grandmother could have conversations without either of them ever even opening their mouths. And he, you know, Danny obviously can see things in the future slightly and things that have happened, you know, which is how he's seeing the twins and the blood, and he sees the woman, or well, we actually don't see what happens in room 237 from Danny's perspective. We only see it from Jack's, which is really interesting because when Danny shows back up with the marks on his neck, that technically could have been Jack, because we don't know where. Yes, we find Jack screaming at the table when she hears him in the boiler room, and she runs in and wakes Jack up, which is when he's like, I dreamt I chopped you up into bits or whatever, you know. We don't actually know where Jack was, so I could see either way, like either Jack, kind of like a sleepwalking hallucination type thing, strangled Danny like in his sleep, or it was really the woman. It was the old dirtbag, nasty, grimy chick from room 237
was it?
that
Oh, yeah.
strangled him. You know, like,
Damn,
like
I could have sworn it was Wayne Brady. Is Wayne Brady going to have to choke a kid?
But yeah, so like, but it's interesting because I think it gives you the vibe that Danny is very powerful, and even in Dr. Sleep, we dive into the fact that like Danny is a very powerful human being. Like, you know, even when, again, Brett, without spoiling this for Miguel, when you know who, the Hat, at the end of Dr. Sleep,
She has my heart.
I know, man. I know. Great,
Becca Ferguson.
great character. Like, arguably one of the best villains in horror history.
Oh,
100%.
Brad would love
She
you for
is
saying
great.
that. So,
Like, but when she feels him and she realize, like, she even makes a comment of like, oh, like you're different. Like, Danny is very powerful, but of course, when he's a kid, he doesn't realize that. So I think Dick Halloran is his way of fostering that and of figuring out what he can do, like what his abilities are. And like you said, Dick Halloran is the OG, man. He's like a good-hearted dude. He just wants to help him. Like, I hate that he died in the way that he did, because he did not
For
deserve
someone
that.
that can
Dick
see the
Halloran
future, he
deserved better.
clearly didn't see that axe coming to his chest.
I know.
Yeah.
I think that's a little strange too, because Dick Halloran does survive the book. He survives the end, and like, I don't understand how he didn't know that was going to happen, because he walks in the hotel at the end of it, and he's like, "Hello, hey, hello." It's like, bro, you
Gotta check
know
your
something's
corners.
wrong. Like,
Yeah, gotta check your corners
you
all the
went
time.
there because you can sense that something is wrong. Yet he just walks in and starts yelling.
Well, I
and
think
it's like,
I think it's
bro,
because
what?
he probably didn't know it was gonna happen that quick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you start a level and it's like there's no way it's gonna come out the gate just fucking hard, and then bam, you end up having to reset.
Yeah.
Or we're in that bed scene where he's just first off sleeping like an OG like this. But remember him in the bed too? He goes like,
Yeah.
having a freak out moment. What if for some reason he saw his death coming, but he still knew if he had to still do it in order to save Danny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that because it's one of those things where it's like you know your demise, but you know why your demise and where it's going to propel the person that you need to help in case Danny. So yeah, I like that idea.
It's like I love this trilogy, so that's why my mind just went here. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, when Jack sacrifices him at the end because he knows that's the only way to stop the Kraken, is if he finally gives in. It's the same kind of thing. It's the only way for it to work out is if he dies. So I actually like that, Brett. I've never thought about that before. That he
I'll be honest with you. I just thought about it just 30 seconds ago. So
it's
crazy how the mind works.
I really like that.
You know what? You can even say that's my shining power.
There you go.
Maybe you shine, man. I dig it.
But back to real quickly about when Wendy woke Jack up, and then you saw Danny with the whole markings on his throat. I just want to point out that it's I'm pretty sure every guy has been there before. Their lady friend or their fiance or wife just calls him a bastard, and the guy, all of us would have been there. We're probably like what?
Oh man!
I just want to resemble that real quick. It's just I felt Jack's pain right there. It's like, what the fuck did I do? I was just, you literally just saw me take a nap. I don't have enough time to go choke a kid, come back, have this weird nightmare, all is spanning 2 minutes. There's no possible way.
That's true. Yeah. At that point, I kind of felt bad for him.
Here's two things that I want to ask the chat too. Number one, do you think Danny's choke marks, the strangulation, the red marks on his neck, were from Jack somehow? Because we're not we don't 100% know where Jack was because we don't see Danny being strangled. We know that Wendy finds him asleep at the typewriter, but he could have been sleepwalking. He could have just, again, he's having some kind of hallucination. Do you think the marks on Danny's neck were from Jack, or do you think that they were from the nasty naked lady in the bathroom? And number two, while you guys are answering that in the chat, what I want to get your all's thoughts on, Tony. Is Tony a manifestation of Danny's abuse? Or is Tony really a ghost or a spirit that is helping Danny to survive? Because every time that Danny faces some type of danger is when Tony shows up. When he sees the twins in the hallway and they're like, Danny, stay with us forever, blah, blah, blah. With that whole thing, he's like, don't listen to them. They're, you know what I mean? He's trying to talk Danny out of it.
Twins.
They're
twins, Tony.
He's trying to reinforce to him, they're not real, you're okay. When he possesses Danny at the red rum moment, he's trying to alert Wendy that dude, Jack is literally outside the door with an axe. He's every time we see Tony's trying to see him. Every time Tony is around, he's trying to save Danny. So do you think Tony was really a spirit or a ghost, or is Tony just Danny? But how you hear that people that suffer something really traumatic like that have some type of dissociative thing. Is Tony just Danny processing trauma, or is Tony really some type of supernatural thing that's helping him along? What do you think about that?
Or option number 3, that could be future Danny.
Oh my god.
Because again, the power of the Shining Man. It's that idea could be very possible.
You just blew my entire freaking mind.
I know. I have a habit of doing that, just out of my randomness, but Brad can tell you. But
that is sick if that was true.
Because I heard that theory somewhere, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go
Wow.
with this theory because that just something. Because again, Tony, like, I remember when young Danny is like, "Show me, Tony," and Tony's like, "No, it's too like." I guess that's just like future Danny trying to like protect him, and then it's like, okay, well, he's gonna have to know eventually. So that's when he kind of showed him the power of his own shining, and then that's where he like it just was too much for him. And obviously in the Overlook Hotel where you amplify your shine, he really couldn't handle it, meaning that he got fully possessed by the future Danny, because he was trying to, what if even that was future Danny saying red rum, because he was trying to protect them, and just kind of like let his mom know, like, hey, you need to get me and yourself out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Because that's the only way that
theory.
Wendy knew that Jack was outside, because somebody had to know, and then you have to relive that situation before.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. My thought was that Tony is some type of spirit or supernatural being that's trying to help him, like a ghost or something like that. But I think there's an argument to be made for all three of those things, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Zodiac said, "I don't know what Tony is, but it's definitely something that's trying to help Danny." Yeah, it is. It is very helpful.
No, Tony's being a cop blocker, not going with the twins.
He's not letting him chase after the twins. To be fair, I don't know if he wanted to chase after the twins, because he sees them standing there, and then he sees them like butchered on the ground, like soaked in blood, and he's like, you know.
Yeah, he's like, that doesn't sound like a good time to me now.
Yeah. Raymond said Tony is his imagination from abuse. If he was a ghost from the hotel, we would see him. But
we're seeing all three right now.
Mm-hmm.
But would we though? Because we don't see we don't necessarily.
Bro, there's so many ghosts that I see, like in The Shining, that doesn't make sense. There's still two that still make very little sense to me.
Oh, I know which one you're getting ready to mention.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
There's a guy and a bear.
The guy and the bear. Yeah, the guy and the bear.
Yeah. I've never seen.
I think Stanley just had a kink, and he just said, "Yes, let's put that there." Because still to this day, I still don't know what the fuck that meant.
You're talking about the bear giving the dude the suit the blowjob in the bedroom, right? When
bear dog or something.
Yeah,
like,
that's such a random thing too. Like, it's in the middle of this crazy chaotic scene, and
to be honest, that's the most frightening thing I've seen too. Out of the whole movie, it really is.
Three things about that. One, that scene was rough. Two, that scene was unbearable. And number three, if I'm doing an all real horror awards of all time of like any horror movie ever, just the best ever in each category for what the fuck moment, that would be my personal vote for what the fuck moment really of all time.
Yeah,
I
hereby deem that the blowjob bear forever. That's what it is.
Tonight's hashtag.
So was there any meaning towards the bear and the guy?
The only argument I've seen for the meaning of that scene is that it's a metaphor, it's a manifestation of Jack's sexual abuse of Danny, but it's such a weird moment though. Like, because it's just quick, you just see it and then it's gone, but you see it and it's like, what was that? Like, that, why did that show up at that particular moment? Like, that could have come at some other point in the film, but it's so weird. Like, it's such a weird thing, especially at that moment, because like it's hitting the fan at that point. Like,
here's the thing.
The music is kind of hyped up, or the soundscape, and then she randomly just sees the blowjob bear sit, and it's just like, oh, okay, and then she leaves.
Well, what fucks me up the most is that that scene is in the book as well. So that means Stephen King thought of it too. So I need to hear from the great mind himself why you had a bear give a blowjob to the butler.
Just
now I'm gonna spend the next 20 years of my life trying to figure that out.
I can't even imagine just what you see, like the guy wearing the bear outfit probably had the same reaction as the guy in the bear suit that was getting burned alive in Midsommar. But
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, just like absolute stoned face. Yeah,
like what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, so I don't even. How did we even get on that topic?
I
don't even know what we
don't.
were talking about.
I don't know. I was just mainly concerned.
I
about that.
figured that was subject was going to come
I was
up.
like, look, man, if we're a horror show and you want to talk about probably one of the more frightening parts of this film, it's that one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very strange. I was actually gonna give me just a second.
Oh gosh.
What are you about to put up, boy?
I was,
I'm terrified.
I was trying to find it. Well, here, let's just do this. Let's just.
But yeah, while Brad's working on that, like just the part of like who choked Danny, I still think it's the old naked lady that choked Danny. But my question really about it, it's just she seemed like one of the people that would not let Danny go, or Danny's not powerful enough to fight away from it. So that's why I feel like it could be Jack. It's like a dog bear thing.
Yeah,
like a
It's a
like a
frightening
deer.
mask. It's a
What
frightening
is
mask.
It looks like a bear, but it's got like the snout of a dog. Like I don't.
It looks like Elisha
don't know.
Wood in that one show on FX.
Oh, that one? Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
And it's funny because the guy on the bed looks like he's getting the most mediocre head of his life. Like he's
No,
just
he looks like he's being interrupted. Like that's the face of being interrupted. He said,
How
"Excuse you." Yeah.
Oh man. So strange. What a strange moment. It's like it's the strangest moment in the entire movie. 100%.
No, it definitely is, and I'll spend the rest of my fucking life trying to figure out why Stephen King had that in there.
I can't. I have no words.
Aaron Click said Harry Bear sex is real. What's up, Aaron?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. But yeah, it's a wild moment. We were talking about Danny. I really don't even know how we got on that topic. That was just that.
That's the power of The Shining, man.
Us. Yeah. Aaron said, I think there's some kind of backstory about decadent cult-like people who had risque parties there. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. Yeah, maybe they do say something like that because they talk about, I believe it's Lloyd, at the moment when Lloyd is talking to Jack at the bar, he says about like, important people were there and, like Hollywood-esque kind of people, and they would have like the risque sexual parties and things like that. Like, so yeah, maybe it was like that. Like, Zodiac said, that was a hell of a soiree they were throwing in the gold room. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, that was some real like Squid Games type stuff right there, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Veronica said at the beginning of the movie, Danny is lying on a bear pillow and it represents sexual abuse. Yeah. And maybe, like,
okay.
Part of the whole, I do think it's a sexual abuse thing because I never picked up on that Jack sexually abused Danny. That was never something that, like, I never picked up on that until recently, and I heard people making the argument for it, and I was like, okay, I could see that because there's the bear, in the California lounge or whatever it's called, or in the Colorado lounge. I don't remember what that room is called where Jack is typing, but there's a bear on the floor in there, and I think there's some kind of metaphor for the fact that
for bears,
for blowjob bears, for the fact that Wendy is like not wanting to admit that Jack was sexually abusive towards Danny. You know what I mean? Part of me does almost. I hate to blame her because I know that's it's difficult. Like I know domestic abuse is really difficult and it's a difficult thing to beat and get out of, but like she just seems so naive about it. Like she didn't want to face it at all, you know? And she ended up doing her thing and facing it and locking him in the pantry, and then she ended up escaping and she did what she had to do for her son, but it's I don't know, it's interesting that it took that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you know what makes it more difficult in this movie to kind of feel? It's just Shelley Duvall's performance and just the character she was playing. It's just this aura that Shelley Duvall has about her. That's just what we call just innocent. And it's just why you can't you want to be mad at her, but she knows something's going on. She's not doing it about it, but you just at the same time you're like, oh, I feel so bad for her, or like you really feel something for her character, and that's why Shelley Duvall was the perfect person to play Wendy in that movie. Even with all the abuse she suffered on set, I think she was still perfectly cast typed in that situation. And only she could have pulled off of what Kubrick was trying to just to do for that particular movie, and with his with her character.
Yeah. And I'd be lying if I didn't think it was not naivety as well. But I think innocence is probably one of the better
Right.
traits you could give Shelley. So
Well, and it's funny you just mentioned innocence, because I think that applies to Danny too. And I like what Aaron just said in the chat. I think Tony is just Danny putting a name to his shining. It's like a security blanket for him. Like
Mhm.
I could see that too. That's a level of innocence for Danny. You know what I mean? Like he knows that he has this ability, but it's just his way of like it's his security blanket. It's his way of making himself feel good about this supernatural superpower, for lack of a better word, that he has. You know.
Yeah.
One thing that we have not talked about yet is Jack's interaction with Lloyd at the bar, as well as Jack's interaction with Grady in the bathroom, because those are two of the most important scenes, sequences in the movie. And it goes back to a comment that Veronica had made at the beginning of the show about the fact that the hotel is its own character. I think in the scenes where Jack is speaking with Lloyd and with Grady, you can almost argue that he's speaking to their ghost, but he's speaking to the hotel, because you get the sense that the hotel is pulling the strings. Like the hotel is the overarching force behind everything that's happening, you know? And, you know, I love the moment because Jack walks into the gold room after he's accused of harming Danny, when she says, you know, you did this, after he wakes up from the dream, and he's all angry. He's kind of like, you know, whatever. And if you notice, there's this weird thing with reflections in The Shining, like, you know, seeing red rum in the reflection and her realizing that it says murder, or you know, Jack looking in the mirror when Danny finds him in the bedroom. There's this strange thing with reflections.
Yes. That literally, I was just looking at that because Brad talks about all the time with The Shining about the mirror theory.
Yeah. Well, and if
that's what you were
pay,
getting into.
I thought it was crazy, but when Jack is making his way to when he's making his way downtown, walking fast, when he's on his way to the gold room, every time he walks by a mirror, he's like, and then he walks, and then he passes another mirror, and he flails and gets like angry again, and it's strange. And he walks in and he sits down, and that's when he's like, you know, he starts to talk about, you know, I forget exactly how he words it, but he's like, you know,
slow night.
He's like, I just want a drink, and he's sitting there, and then he says,
he'd sell his soul for a drink, I think. And I think that was an interesting line too.
For just a glass of beer. And then he looks up, and he's looking straight at the camera, but he's really looking at the mirror, which is another weird mirror reference there, you know. And he's sitting there looking at the mirror, and that's when he goes, hi, Lloyd, you know, and it's like he's making dead eye contact with you. And then you turn and you see the full bar. It's no longer empty. Lloyd is standing there, you know. It's a very interesting moment. And the fact that he says, I would sell my soul for just a glass of beer, and then immediately Lloyd is there.
That's pretty on the nose, right?
That's very on the nose. That's the hotel being like, okay, hey.
Yeah.
You want a what for a glass of beer? Like, really? Say it again.
Okay,
like,
we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
Jack Daniels is it? Like,
yeah. So yeah, I think that's a very interesting moment. Even when it's talking about, you know, like there's I forget exactly how the interaction with there's a lot said there, but it may be the second time he interacts with Lloyd, but when he goes to get a drink, and Lloyd is like, you know, your money's no good here or whatever and stuff like that, and he, you know, he says about like, you know, he even says like, you know, I like to know who's buying my drinks, Lloyd, or something like that, and Lloyd just tells him not to worry about it or something like that. Like,
your money's no good here, Mr. Torrance.
Yeah, like you can tell the hotel still has the upper hand, and like it's not gonna reveal itself to him at all. It's not gonna do that. And then when we talk to Grady, as soon as we talk to Grady in the bathroom, which is a whole other interesting thing, and this ties into the color thing as well. Like, you know, room 237 is green, and I believe green is supposed to represent the ghost or the spirit or the supernatural element to the overlook. And then like Lloyd's jacket is bright red, and then the bathroom is bright red when he's sitting there talking to Grady. Like, I think there's a demonic devil-ish type thing that you're supposed to get from Lloyd. I
And
think
the bathroom has mirrors too.
right, they're standing there in the mirror. You even see them in, like, the camera is panned where, yes, you're seeing Jack, but you're seeing them through the mirror as well. Like, you can see, you're looking, Jack is this way, but you're looking at the mirror and you can see Grady's face through the mirror. That is even more so. I do love the scene with Lloyd, but the Grady in the bathroom, that's the more intense scene for me. What'd you take from that interaction between Jack and Grady?
Mainly just that's pretty much just like that was like the time and the moment of the spirit of the Overlook Hotel. It's like, all right, Jack, we just fed you all this fake alcohol. Now it's just time to return the favor and let's go kill those people. Because again, the Overlook Hotel, they felt threatened. That's why they did all this. I think they felt threatened because of Danny and how powerful of a shiner that he is. And they just did not want any part of it. So that's why they just went to Jack and said, hey, Jack, take care of the problem, and we'll feed you free fake drinks for the rest of the time. And not only that, too, like I'll just to throw an idea out there. What if the twin girls were shiners too? And the Overlook Hotel took care of them.
Been. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past like the twin girls being shiners.
Just possibly.
I think the interesting thing about the interaction between Jack and Grady in the bathroom is, he spills the whatever on Jack and he's in the bathroom and he's trying to clean him up or whatever. And it's really interesting because Jack is... It's one of the few times that I think we're actually getting Jack, not possessed Jack, not crazy Jack. Like, I think Jack is actually having a conversation with the hotel in that moment because, he's talking whatever and he says, my name is Grady, sir, and he's talking and Jack's kind of like, he has that moment of realization and then Jack finally confronts it and he's like, he says, you said your name was Dilbert. Like, are you Charles Grady? And he says something like, they're having a whole nice conversation. And then he says something like, didn't you chop up your wife and daughters into little bits or something like that? And from that moment, the entire vibe and ambiance and like the atmosphere in the room changes. And immediately it's like Jack is powerless in that moment. Like, he pushed a little too far. The hotel wasn't ready for him to know that. Like, it wasn't ready for him to push those buttons yet. Because that's when Grady, it's very standoffish, and Grady just kind of has that, like, he's giving him that look, and he starts to say, like, he denies that he is Charles Grady. And he says, about, I was never the caretaker because you've always been the caretaker. And he says, I should know, Mr. Torrance, I've always been here, just like you've always been here, And it's just like, that's a whole other thing of like, whoa, like that.
I think that was part of like the reincarnation thing of like, just like seeding his mind with what it was prior to, what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the reincarnation angle is interesting because, I mean, obviously the hotel is smart, and I think the hotel uses people however it needs to get more victims, to eliminate more people. Well, and I think in that moment, it needed an angle to get to Jack. And what it needed to tell Jack was the fact that it uses a very unkind racial term to describe Dick Halloran, but when it's it needed to tell Jack that Danny shines, he has this supernatural ability, and he has reached out, like him and Dick Halloran have been communicating, and Dick is coming to try to save him and Wendy, like. And that's what Jack needed to know. And it gives Jack this sense of urgency of like, okay, I have to kill them now. And that is the moment, like you said, Brett. I think that's Jack's breaking point, is that moment of like, okay, this has to happen right now, you know. So
Yeah, like he knows too
I love
much.
that scene. Yeah, like he knows too much. Even because Jack is unaware of the fact that Danny has this ability, and when because the Grady even says, I wish I remembered how exactly he worded it, but he says something like, he says like, your son has an extraordinary talent, like, and he's using that talent to attract an outsider, and that, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. But I think that's
See,
such
again,
a good
like I
scene.
referenced to earlier, that the hotel knows how powerful Danny is as a shiner, and they
Right.
must eliminate the threats.
Yes, 100%. Which brings us to. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, if the hotel can see how powerful Danny is, and they would want to get rid of him, why isn't Dick under the same assumption? And
Because Dick
in
is
the beginning,
older and he has more control over his shining, that he's not easily overtaken of the hotel, while Danny is just a child
Right.
who's just learning his shining. And that also kind of makes sense now too. I bet the old lady in the bathroom was that first attempt to take out Danny. So that's why I still go with the whole thing, even though I still think it's Wayne Brady. But the old lady is definitely the one that was the one that choked Danny. It was not Jack, and they
I agree
used
with that.
Jack for Wendy to blame Jack. I think the hotel did that on purpose. That way, it's a whole nother mental break of Jack to easily influence his mind. So all this is making sense to me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have two thoughts here. Number one, I think Dick Halloran, the reason it never bothered him, like there's even a moment when because Danny obviously knows something is up with room 237, and Danny asks him about it. And Dick Halloran says, there ain't nothing in room 237. Like, don't you worry about it. But he's also like, he denies that anything's there, but he's also like, you have no need to go in there. Do not go in that room. Like, there is no reason for you to be in there. And you get this sense of like, okay, Dick knows there's something really bad in there that he doesn't want Danny to see. But I think Dick has control of his shining enough that he can kind of block it out. Like, I think he can ignore the ghosts and the spirits. He can ignore the hotel a little bit more than Danny can. But I also
want to explain that, but I definitely want Miguel to watch Dr. Sleep, because they explained it from Dick's point of view of how he's able to actually, just pretty much all we were asking is how Dick can control everything in that hotel. And damn, I really want to go into it, but I want Miguel just to go in, not blind necessarily, but just to go in without us like saying anything, because they explained it in the first 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, so they're going to explain more on Dick's abilities. Okay, because in my head I was just thinking, like, if Dick could see like Danny is, that he does shine bright, and he knows
bright like a diamond.
You're gonna say that. Why wouldn't Dick not only warn him of room 237, but warn him of the hotel's like ability or like disdain for people who shine, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Well, I guess just like to explain 237, why Dick did want Dane to know, is that there's nothing in room 237, because pretty much in a way that's Dick's bitch in there. He's the pimp. That's his bitch. He doesn't want no one else to take him. But in regards to the other entities in the hotel, I don't necessarily know. But again, it's hard to talk about it, because again, the Dr. Sleep does explain it a little more. But the most important thing that Dr. Sleep does more of than what The Shining didn't do was explain it just pretty much in a way, it explains The Shining, and you'll know what we're talking about. Well, like once you actually watch Dr. Sleep, because that's why I always just give Dr. Sleep all the praise in the world. Not only does it incorporate Kubrick's The Shining story, but it also just refers to right back to Stephen King's version of The Shining while respecting Kubrick. Like, that's why I think my flank is a pure freaking genius, because he just combined two worlds of The Shining and made it perfection.
It's the perfect mesh of the two. And like, I think, you could make the argument that Dr. Sleep explains too much, but again, for somebody that was just kind of a lukewarm fan of The Shining, like, it made me appreciate it so much more. And it doesn't explain it. It doesn't explain it in a cringe way. Like, it's not in a, like, it ruins the surprise way. It just kind of further makes you, like, it
intrigues you.
Yes, it builds up the characters a little bit more. It does it from a character perspective, not from a, well, it's not like Scooby-Doo ripping the mask off and you find out what happens. It makes it all a little bit more intriguing. And I wanted to bring up Zodiac's comment. Zodiac said, Dick is definitely a controller. He wouldn't still be working at that hotel. Mm-hmm. What if that's why he stays at the hotel? Because he knows that he can try and protect people from it. Every day he stops by room 237 and he opens the door. He's like, you better stay your ass in this room. He points at her in the bathtub. He's like, don't you leave this room.
Do the demon impersonation. You're going to get it, bitch.
Yeah.
He's like, I will know if you leave this room. Don't do it. Every time he sees a ghost, he's just like, go away. Go back.
Get back in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. But and so really we're at the point where we're at the climax of the film. We're at Here's Johnny, we're at the maze. When Tony possesses Danny, if that's how you want to look at it, and he writes red rum on the door, and he's trying to get Wendy to understand that Jack has escaped the pantry. Oh, that's sick, dude. I like that.
I got this for Christmas, actually. And
that's
of course,
dope.
The
that
classic
is sick.
carpet.
Oh, that's so cool, man. I love it. First of all, another question that I want to get your all's thoughts on. We hear Grady's voice outside of the door. Did Grady let Jack out of the pantry?
I would think at that point that the shining powers of the Overlook Hotel opened the door.
Yeah,
that was what I interpreted that as much because I definitely know Wendy didn't do it. I definitely know Dick didn't do it. I definitely know Danny didn't do it. So I definitely think it was the entity of the hotel that did it.
There are people that have made the argument that that's a part of Danny's trauma, Jamie Lee Curtis trauma. That's a part of his trauma is that when Jack is like, please give me another chance, like blah, 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 blah at the door, that Danny would have been the one to open it. But I don't think he would have done that. I don't think Tony would have let Danny open the door.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Danny.
Yeah, future Danny. I don't think, whatever Tony is, I don't think it would have let him do that. Mm-hmm. And we hear Grady's voice, so I do think it was a...
perpetuate the story the same way that, Dick had to go in there knowing that full well that he was going to die.
Yeah. And it's interesting. One of the editors for the film, somebody who was editing the film with Stanley Kubrick, said in an interview that they filmed a scene where Grady opens the door. They actually see Grady opening the door for Jack, and Kubrick chose to cut that out of the film because he didn't want you to see who opens the door. That was intentional.
Which that was great.
Yeah, that's a really, really great. That's a great thing. But
two things. Can I say two things about that scene real quick? And also another thing too, because I know we're getting ready to get to the climax. It's that whole room. First off, we get that famous camera angle shot that Kubrick invented of like the upside down angle where Jack's just doing this.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely perfection. And number two, Jack's the luckiest guy in the world. If anywhere he could get locked inside a hotel, he got the one where he can have all the Oreos and the freaking food he wants. So I'm not jealous of that because knowing me, I get trapped in room 237, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And then, of course, the definitely one, someone mentioned it earlier in the chat. I believe it was Raymond. It's a while ago, but he brought up the classic score of this movie, which a lot of people, or a great friend of mine once said, the score is the heartbeat of your film. And gosh almighty, if they knocked it out of the park with the score of this film to give this movie its own personality with that score alone.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of weird sound effect things. Like it's more of I think it's less of a traditional score and it's more of a soundscape, like building things to make you feel uneasy and uncomfortable. And as Like at the beginning of the film, anytime you hear the bum bum bum
Awesome.
bum bum, so that's actually a Gregorian chant called the Dies Irae, which means Day of
Ooh.
Wrath.
Okay.
So essentially, that figure has been used in a ton of different pieces of music. I mean, for thousands of years. I mean, but it's associated with death. It's actually the same exact thing. If you go watch Jason Lives when the lightning strikes after Tommy and stupidly, this is one of the dumbest things ever. Tommy resurrecting Jason when he's trying to kill. Like, bro was literally already dead.
Trying to unleash his inner Jack Torrance, like he was just angry.
Trying to kill him again. Anyways, but when Jason is resurrected, you hear ba 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 ba.
Yes.
Like you hear that, so that motif has been used quite a bit, but that's why you hear it like at the beginning of The Shining is, and it's interesting enough because I don't know if you've ever noticed this before. When you see the opening shot over the lake, you see the reflection of the forest in the lake, well as hearing, again with the weird mirror reflection thing, being like a different dimension to another world, ghosts, whatever. Like I just think that's an interesting parallel too. But yeah, that the Dies Irae
blew my mind.
It's pretty dope. So you should look that up.
Holy shit. God, you just blew my mind right there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you just returned a favor. Appreciate it.
I was gonna say, yeah.
yeah, that's returning a favor from before. Raymond said talking about the door, it just came loose because the hotel wanted Jack to kill Danny. Yeah, it was just another way of saying, like, you got to do this. And it's interesting that Grady is almost kind of accusatory because he's like, he almost confronts Jack when they're talking through the door, and he's like, you didn't do it. Like, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. I believe it even says keeping up your end of the bargain. Like, like, we gave you your drink, we've done this for you, like, we're going to give you the time to write your novel, but you have to kill them. Like, you have to do that.
We gave you your time with the novel. We gave you your drink. We even provide you with snacks.
Right.
Now it's time to get down to business.
Yeah, right. So
when you have to pull it now at this point.
Yeah. So obviously Jack starts to break down the door, which is funny because apparently Jack Nicholson volunteered as like a volunteer firefighter. He took the first time they tried to film that, he took down the door with like 2 swings. And they were like, that ain't gonna work. I read that he took down like 60 doors or something like that in filming this. Because
I guess he was a former firefighter.
Kubrick made them do it so many times, but he also just took down the doors too easy. Like, they had to keep getting new doors that were like harder for him to tear down because like it took to like he was already in the room by the time Danny and Wendy were trying to make it in the bathroom. So like they had to make it so that it was slower for him getting through the door, but the "Here's Johnny" line was completely improvised. Mm-hmm. That was not written in the script. That was just a nod to Johnny Carson. I personally love. I think it's strange that. Do you think it's weird that he left Wendy to go kill Dick when he heard the snowcat arrive? Because his entire end game was wanting to kill Danny and Wendy. And he literally, he maybe had to swing 1 or 2 more times, and he'd have been in the bathroom, and he could have killed her, and then went downstairs to go kill Dick Halloran. I don't understand why he didn't. I mean, obviously I'm glad he didn't, but I don't know why he didn't off Wendy and then to make his way downstairs to go kill Dick. Because I think it's strange that he was just like
the ego of
never
the hotel.
mind,
Well, I think it was because mainly that Jack, aka the entity taking over Jack, knows the threat that Dick possesses. So you have to take care of the bigger threat. Because come on, let's face it. As much as we left Wendy, he could off Wendy at any point. Literally any point. And the order of operation at that moment was Danny and then Wendy, but now it was Dick, then Danny, and then Wendy, because Wendy didn't have the power of the shine to overtake, so she was just pretty much defenseless and all of that. Yeah. So it was just a matter of time. So he took out the bigger threat, that was Dick.
You just made me think of something, Brett.
All right.
When he's talking to Grady in the bathroom, Grady says that the daughters needed correcting. So maybe they did shine. Maybe you're right. Maybe they did shine. And
Yeah,
then he
that's a
said
perfect quote to prove it.
his wife was so angry that he did it, and she was so distraught, she needed correcting. So he killed his children first and then went after the wife. Maybe that's why what you just said about like the order of operations, like the hierarchy, like Danny had to go first and then Wendy would have gone.
Yeah, because he thought that Danny was still in that bathroom with Wendy, but he didn't know that Danny went out there.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
as far
also,
as-
do you think the Overlook was threatened by Danny?
Oh, absolutely. From the get-go. Again, that's why they sent that bitch from 237 to take out Danny.
What can Danny do to negatively affect the hotel? That was my question.
Well, it's just the power of his shining that's greater, and any evil entity does not like when somebody else has more power for you. And plus, that's just proven to our world today, which kind of a scary way. It's just you always want more power.
Right. Evil wants to create more evil. And if Danny
That's like
and
Jafar
Dick,
from Aladdin. He always wants to be number one. That's how Aladdin beats him, because he tricks him like, well, Genie will always be the best and you will always be second best. And that's, again, just the power of greed.
Zodiac said Dick envy.
Or as we say at our watch party, he chopped Dick. He chopped Dick.
Yeah. Or that's another thing. That could be possible too. Maybe the hotel told him to go kill Dick. Maybe in that moment. Because he doesn't say anything. Like, he hears it happen, and then he just kind of, like, turns and is like he thinks about it for a minute, and then he just goes.
Well,
it's strange that I always find it weird that he just, like, he goes through all of that, and then he just turns and leaves. Like, he just leaves them in there, you know. Obviously, Danny wasn't in there at that point.
Plus, it's just horror trope 101, too.
Right.
Or maybe it's because, like, he knows that, like, there's no way they would even try to leave that bathroom. Maybe they just scared him to, like, comatose, and then, like, maybe I can just go kill Dick, come back, and they'll still be scared shitless.
Yeah.
Yes, that, and I remember too, Jack blocked every attempt of a getaway from Wendy and Danny. They got nowhere to go, and then when Dick brought his way of transportation, that's when the threat settled in, like, oh shit, they can leave. I gotta go take care of this problem.
I completely forgot about that angle. You're right.
No, I know Miguel just kind of like lit a light bulb. It's like they're traumatized, but wait, can they escape? And that's just where everything clicked.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because so he kills Dick Halloran, and Danny is hiding in the hallway in the cupboard slidey thing. It's like the Jurassic, it's the same thing, like the Jurassic Park thing. Like, it's literally the same thing. So he's hiding in there. It's interesting, again, talking about, like you said, the order of operations, like math, you know, when he's going to Wendy, you know, he's almost toying with Wendy, like he's playing with her emotions, you know, he's very, you know, and I'll huff and I'll puff, and he's saying stuff, and he's kind of like being sarcastic. He's taking his time with it. As soon as Danny rolls out and Danny takes off, there's a sense of urgency to get to Danny. That he doesn't have with Wendy, which again supports your point that Danny had to go. Like, Danny, he knew that Danny had to go first, because obviously he's limping and he was slow, you know what I mean? But like, he's screaming for him. There's a level of urgency and intensity in trying to find Danny and trying to kill Danny that he doesn't necessarily have with Wendy, which I think is very interesting, you know?
Well, I think it's also because she doesn't really shine, you know what I mean? Like, and I think...
Right, she's not as much of a threat.
And they don't really know how much conversation or how much connection Dick and Danny had. So, in severing the tie between Dick from Danny, I'm sure that the hotel is like, okay, well, now we definitely need to get rid of Danny, because we don't know how much Danny knows now, or how much powerful Danny probably feels he is, thanks to Dick's input. You know?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then we get to the maze. You know, Danny's already been in the maze. Jack really hasn't, because Jack spent 0 time with his family in the month that they were there before all of this happened.
He's a very like unproductive father figure and writer, because he
Yes.
not only did not take care of his kids and family, but he also didn't write a book for shit.
Yeah, but here's the thing with that whole maze that I was just kind of thinking about too. Again, this ain't just regular Jack. This is possessed Jack from the Overlook Hotel.
Right.
So you think if anybody knows that maze inside and out, it's that entity at the Overlook Hotel.
Right.
So that's the kind of the thing I'm thinking about now is how did Jack get lost in there?
Well,
Well, I
and
think the
Danny
entity
also
left.
kind of outsmarts him too with the footprints. Covering
Oh,
up
which
the
that was
footprints with the
freaking
snow,
brilliant.
like, it was.
Yeah.
Which again, I think that's Danny's smart. Like Danny's not a moron, and I think the hotel knows that, and I think that's why there was that sense of urgency. You know, I think in that moment when Jack starts to slow down and he's out of breath and he's stumbling and he's, you know what I meant, whatever, like he almost seems drunk, which is interesting because he's a recovering alcoholic. Like it's like that is coming out of him. But it's like his body is starting to give out, but his soul, the spirit of the hotel, is trying to push him to find Danny. And then I think the cut is weird. When we cut to Jack frozen where he's like, I think it's a very strange, because it's like you have this hardcore, it doesn't give you a chance to like slowly like come off, like ease off of that intensity. It's just like, bong, and then it's immediately Jack is there. It's like, oh.
Okay. I was like, you
That's
think he had the
strange.
common
Like,
sense of
okay.
just to go back to the hotel and wait on Danny to come back in? Like,
Yeah, well,
Well,
even
do you
if he
think-
did freeze to
I
death,
think
it's just the transition to that scene is just like, oh, like,
Mhm.
like
I was
that's
like, well,
strange.
that's
that
just-
kind of came out of nowhere.
Mhm. What do you guys think that? Do you guys think that the entity, like the hotel, left his body close to the end of his death? And do you think at the very end, do you think that Jack was Jack at the end?
yeah,
Like,
and that's
prior to
why,
his
and the
death.
reason why he couldn't get out of the maze. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah,
They
that's
probably
true.
just say, okay, this is a lost cause. He ain't going to get the job done, so we're done with him.
Yeah,
pretty
that's,
much.
That's
It's like
that's
it's
a good
over.
thought too. Yeah, two things that we didn't really touch on yet, and one of them is a theory that I read that I want to get your thoughts on, and the second one, we haven't talked about the moment when Wendy finds, just before the baseball bat scene, when Wendy finds the manuscript. There you go. When she finds the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
I took it.
You know, what's the story behind that? Why do you have that?
Okay, here's why I had that. It's like I showed this item right here. I'll say his name. One of my good buddies, Braden Timmons. He got
Yeah.
that for me for Christmas, and the package, like the wrapping paper that it came in, was this.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
And I just couldn't throw it away. It's too
Oh, yeah.
thick. So that's
Yeah.
why the story is. And my joke now is like, yeah, I was there during The Shining, and I took a
Yeah.
page from his
Yeah.
book because it
That's
says
cool.
this. Daniel went to play. Daniel was in the middle of the field. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, yeah, that's the story behind that. As
That's
the
pretty cool.
wrapping paper fact wrapped this up.
I like that. But yeah, I mean, that whole reveal is incredible because you're seeing it again from the low angle. It's a classic Kubrick shot of like, you're looking at something, you're seeing the effect of what it's doing to the character. You're looking at something and it's this frantic, like she's looking, you know, it's her moment of realization of like, okay, he's gone. Like my husband is gone. There's nothing left. Like, because she's frantically like flipping through the pages, hoping to find something else. And there's nothing else, you know?
Mhm.
But mainly, she was so distraught about how many times they replaced the typewriter throughout the entirety of the movie. I'm not sure if you noticed
Was
that.
it
or
a
not.
different typewriter every single scene?
I
Oh,
never
yeah.
noticed that, but I never noticed that like in watching it, but I have read that they changed.
Yeah,
it
so next time you watch the
purposely.
movie, pay very close attention to the typewriter.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe that's just again the Kubrick thing about perfection. It's like, oh, I could get a better typewriter than this, or
Yeah, there have
because I'm
been-
pretty sure one of them was actually red at one point. Because again, that brings up to your theory
Right.
about like the colors of
colors.
the movie. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the one where she finds it, I think it's actually green or something.
Yeah.
So that's something actually to look into. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, there are some people that have made the argument that the film is a metaphor. You know, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. You know, there's conspiracy theories like theories, excuse me, like
The moon
this
landing.
is Kubrick's apology for filming the moon landing, like he was the person they got to film the moon landing, and like I think that's a little extreme, you know. But then there's also people who think that the film is a metaphor for the Holocaust and what Nazi Germany did to you know, Jewish people, and you know, like all this stuff. And I think the tie-in there could possibly be, if you want to go with the Nazi Germany theory, the tie-in there would be like the Germans' incessant keeping record of what they were doing. Like I think there's a lot of like recording what happened exactly. So like maybe that's the typewriter thing. I don't know. I haven't really dug into that theory. I'm just kind of spitballing off of that.
Yeah, and Veronica brings up a good point too. Sometimes the maze is not there, and the main reason for that is because the shot of location they shot the movie, there was no maze, so it actually had to be added into the movie.
Yeah, yeah. They shot this. Principal photography took place in England at Elstree Studios, but a lot of the interior shots were based off of the Awahani Grand Hotel in California, and obviously the exterior shots were the Timberline, whatever lodge in Oregon. So like there were, it wasn't like they actually filmed it inside of the Timberline lodge. It was it was a set that was rebuilt and things like that.
And just to think about it, you know, that opening shot of the hotel, like with the sky cam, and it's you do that whole big circle around the hotel. When you kind of think about it, the maze wasn't in that shot either. I need to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure that's maybe what Veronica was referring to.
You're right.
Times. God,
you're right.
Damn,
man, it just never
throwing some dimes out here.
That's why I love doing these streams, because you learn so much just by talking it out.
Exactly. And you know, usually because the whole idea behind the Purely and Simply Evil show was to do more than just a review, but like to actually deep dive into like every aspect of it, like the production, the meaning, like obviously reviewing the film and talking about the story and things you like and things you dislike and whatever, but like this one was different. Usually I can have a pretty good set of notes to like, you know, go off of and things like that. I literally didn't know where to even begin making notes for this, because the production itself, other than the Shelley Duvall thing and Kubrick's, you know, weird perfectionist thing, like the production itself wasn't anything crazy, you know. It wasn't like, you know, it often, like you've even heard John Carpenter say, like everybody always wants to know, like, what was it like making Halloween? And he was like, it was just a normal 2 weeks on set. Like there was nothing extraordinary about it. I don't think there was really anything extraordinary about the production of this. I think the meat and potatoes of this film is in the interpretation and the meaning, and really leaning into like, okay, what was happening with the characters, what was happening with, you know, the meaning, and interpreting the different things and variations of the film. Like I think that's where this one has amazed me, and it's been very different from any other film that we've talked about on the channel, really.
Yeah, and there's like you don't always assume when you make like the script and everything, you start making the movie, you obviously don't know right then and there that you have something special. You just think, it's just going to be a regular movie, and we just hope it succeeds. And then once it hits the big screen, then that's when you kind of put everything together. That's like to be along that journey. Then you get to see it grow, and that would be the indicator when you know create something special.
Yeah, 100%. One last theory I want to throw at you before we start to wrap this up. There is a theory. I personally don't subscribe to this theory. I don't believe that this is the case. There is a theory that there was not a single ghost in this film. That Grady and Lloyd and everybody in the gold room that's eating and dancing and all of the waiters and waitresses and everything, that every bit of that was just a hallucination. The lady in room 237, when Wendy sees the skeletons and everything, there is a theory that every single bit of that was just a hallucination from Jack or from Danny or from Wendy. Go.
Absolutely. I don't believe it, mainly because of the fact of, and what was the ending of Dr. Sleep about?
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can say without but
I'm sure because of that theory probably doesn't fly too well. But yeah, and if you were to say like only Jack was able to see this, and I would have said bullshit because Wendy sees the fucking bear and
Yes,
guy.
I was going
So
to bring that up too. Does Wendy have a little bit of the Shining in her since she's seen the entities, or is that just the entity just deciding to reveal it to her?
that's what I think. Like,
I
can
think it's more
everybody
that.
shine? Can everybody
I
shine? Just not to
I don't
any
think so
level?
because Dick says some people have it and some people don't. Same thing, like some places have it and some places don't. Like it's
maybe
just,
maybe it's hereditary.
it could
maybe
be,
it's
which
like the
again
mutant
is
gene.
why
Just
I don't think
is
Wendy
too
shines.
innocent.
I don't think Wendy shines at all. I think if one of the parents shines, it's Jack. But again, I could see an argument for either one of them. But I don't know. I personally don't like the thought that there's not. Because if you make the argument that there's no ghosts in the movie, like it just
seems odd.
It seems like it's just about a guy going crazy. There is no supernatural element. Like it almost makes the purpose of The Shining irrelevant because the whole point of The Shining is that Danny sees ghosts. I see dead people. You know what I mean? The Sixth Sense. Like Danny can interact. He can see the lady in room 237. He can see the twins. He can see their ghosts. He can see that, you know? And I think that theory just kind of makes the entire idea of what the hotel is kind of irrelevant. So I don't personally subscribe to that theory. I don't think
No, I wouldn't either.
It was a hallucination.
Raymond says it best in the chat.
What was that?
Raymond said it the best in the chat.
Raymond said, yeah, that sounds like a theory somebody who didn't like the movie. Yeah, I can see that.
Trust me, there's some weirdos out there that really do not like this movie. And again, I love to read on why that is because me and Brad, we have our thing on the channel. We love different opinions. So even someone that's bold as saying, oh, we don't like The Shining, we definitely want to know immediately why. Don't say, like, again, this is our high school that taught me and Brad. It's just don't say, I didn't like it. Well, why didn't you like it? Because I just don't. Have a reason ready, so at least you can talk about it.
At literally every single person who dogs on Halloween Ends. Mic drop.
Boom.
Literally everybody.
It sucks.
Halloween. Were you not an Ends fan?
No, I think I was on your. I was on the channel when we talked about Ends.
Actually.
Yeah, he didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and kick me out. Fuck.
Whatever. Well, guys, this was fun. I'm kidding. But now, if you have reasons why you don't like Halloween Ends, that's perfectly fine. That's cool.
That's the point. Yeah, like you want to hear the reasonings.
It kills me these people in Facebook groups and stuff who are like, Halloween Ends sucked, and it's like, okay, why did it suck? It just sucked. They ruined Michael Myers. Okay, how did they ruin Michael Myers? It was just dumb. What? Like, what's your reasoning other than it was just stupid, it was just dumb? I didn't like it. Like, bro, you got to give some kind of a reason, you know? Same thing. Right. So, but yeah, man, this, in conclusion, as we start to wrap this thing up, we just had a 2-hour conversation about this film.
Yeah.
And it's even 2 more hours, to be honest with you.
I don't think this is the last of the Shining content that we will have on our channel. I already have at least 2 or 3 ideas for like standalone videos to do about this too. I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to it. I don't know if I could name another film that there's this much to talk about, that there's that much to dive into.
Dr. Sleep is even more of a bigger conversation.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure once we have that in our discography, I'm sure we could probably tag along another 2 or 3 hours in this.
And I'll tell you what, the whole no ghost theory, Dr. Sleep completely throws that out of the water.
Oh,
because literally, you literally see the ghosts in Dr. Sleep, like literally see them. Also,
I'm back.
Hi.
I thought it was okay, if it was okay if I was done what I was doing, if I could come back on since you guys are live. So.
You're good. We're actually just getting ready to wrap up. But...
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just make a quick cameo at the end. Perfect time.
Right. Cameo at the end, man.
But I actually do have an interesting question. I just thought about this, and this is actually a very cool question. Just to go around the table, I'll save mine at the end because I got so many of them. But what's some of your favorite moments of another like television show, cartoon show that make fun of The Shining or uses The Shining incorporated with their movie or with their show? Like, is there any scene like from another series or movie that's just like, oh, that came from that came from The Shining?
Oh.
So, like, I've heard an example out there. If anyone's a fan of Bob's Burgers, they easily make or like incorporate the twins and all that.
Yeah.
I know South Park
like
done it
that.
as well. So,
I think I just broke. Brad's doing the freaking face from the Jack Torrance.
Oh, I know what it was. It was.
I had to look it up.
It was the Simpsons. It was the Simpsons' very first Halloween at Treehouse of Horror episode. They did it with Homer acting like Jack Torrance.
Here's Johnny, adult.
It was pretty awesome, funny.
Yeah. I like the Family Guy references, and there's not an episode that like a straight episode that parodies it, but there's like little references. Like there's an episode where Danny, I'm losing my mind, where Stewie's riding the bicycle, and he sees the two girls, but they say something really like off color and stupid. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I'll tell you, man, Family Guy. I adore that show. I don't watch it too much anymore.
Us, Stewie. Oh, okay. I'll play with you. Rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but that's a good one.
Oh man, Miguel, is there one?
I would say mine is probably like the newer installment it's a newer one. I think it was from Ready Player One, wherever they had to find an Easter egg inside the film of The Shining, which
they did a whole level.
They did a whole level of it, and they pretty much like ripped like a couple like some really pivotal scenes in there, and it looked gorgeous, and it was a beautiful way to pay homage to it, because The Shining being one of the most pivotal parts of the 80s, and for it to be in Ready Player One, which is pretty much your typical like everybody was harking on retro games at that time, so it was only fair for it to be in that film. So
and Ready Player One played a homage to a lot of things in that.
It definitely did.
That's my favorite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my favorite, but my second favorite, and this is Brad's favorite. This actually happened. You ready for this one? It happened in Evil Dead Rise. The elevator scene with the blood, and then when the blood spewed out the elevator.
Oh, yeah.
That's The Shining from when it falls out the elevator.
True.
That's another favorite of mine. Yeah,
I remember thinking that. Yeah, you're right. Which we never talked about that. What's your interpretation of the blood? Of Danny seeing the blood coming out of the elevator?
Probably just the blood, like just all the blood that was shed inside the Overlook Hotel.
I think it's all the blood from all the victims as well that happened in that.
I would agree. I think because there's a reference before. I know we see the blood happening a few times, and I know we only see it a little bit at first, and then the second time it's a little bit more, and then the next time it's more. It's like actually like flooding out. But there's one of the times right before we see it, there's a reference to the Native American burial ground thing. So I think it's also a reference to the number of Native Americans that would have died in building the hotel too. I think it's the victims and the Native American thing. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just I think it's just saying like there's blood on the walls, if that makes sense. Like the history of this hotel, like it's written all over the place. Like this hotel has a dark history. It has horror. It has a whole line of just blood. Like it's everywhere. Like there's no getting away from it. So
yeah. Real quick before we go, Brett, I'm glad you said that. There is literally an entire wiki page of things that have referenced.
I'm telling you, man. Because somebody actually brought up a hilarious one too about Randy buying Blockbuster videotapes, and the guy that buys or just returns the clerk is freaking Lloyd from The Bartender.
Yeah.
And even some video games have references in it too.
Yeah.
Brad, your favorite movie? They referenced it. Well, it was just like a cameo, just like an Easter egg.
My favorite movie,
Twister.
Yeah, that's on here
because the movie played.
They're playing it in Twister. It's on in Oklahoma when the EF 4 or 5 or whatever it is coming in. In Poltergeist, Carol Ann wakes up at 2:37 and meets the ghost, referencing room 237 in the movie.
Damn, I didn't know about that one.
Friday the 13th, Part 3. Towards the end, there's a scene where Dana Kimmel's character is in a closet. Jason hacks through part of the door with an axe and reaches his hand in only to be stabbed with a larger knife. Twister, it's playing in the drive-in theater when the tornado comes in.
Yeah.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had a reference after eating some. I've never watched that show. I don't know if anybody else has.
No, I heard of it though.
It sounds interesting.
Carrie referenced it. Referenced during the pig slaughter scene. Don't worry, little piggy. Uncle Jack is gonna bash your little head right in. Like, there's some pretty cool ones. Plus the Family Guy one.
They did that because Carrie came out in the mid 70s. Oh wait, that was from The Simpsons. I thought you were talking about Carrie from the 70s.
It's the remake of Carrie.
Remake.
I should have said that. It's the 2013 remake with Chloe Grace Moretz.
Freaking fortune teller, like.
Yeah, it was already predicting a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The creators of Carrie, did they shine? Could they see the future? Like, they saw the fact
they did. I think
definitely Carrie did.
They saw the fact that was going to happen. Yeah, man. Zodiac said there's a Manson song that references The Shining too. It's called Kinderfield. The lyrics go, "He lives inside my mouth and tells me what to say." Direct reference to Tony. That's pretty cool.
Even SpongeBob has referenced it. So.
And also, Raymond, you are correct. The new Twister movie looks dope.
Oh,
Twisters looks awesome.
100%.
Actually, this is my third favorite one. Do y'all know the show on the USA Network called Psych?
Yes.
Yes. I haven't watched all of it.
They did a whole episode of Detective Lasser being Jack Torrance, and they had Gus play Wendy. And especially when he's breaking down the bathroom, so you see Gus in the corner go, "Ah!" Oh, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, there's other ones too. I missed a whole category. So there's, we got The Simpsons, we got Family Guy. There's a Slipknot song that references it. The Marilyn Manson song. There's a 30 Seconds to Mars song that references it. Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
When Bruce the shark, when the great white goes, "Here's Brucey," before he bursts through the thing. I mean, like, it made its way into Disney movies. Like, you know that's a big deal. In Coco, the 2017 Disney flick, that's a really good movie, by the way.
That is good.
That's one of Disney's best new ones. When Miguel is chasing after Dante through the art room, he passes by a painting of the Grady twins as skeletons. Like, the Grady twins are in. You know what I mean? So it's just, that goes to show you right there. Like, when Disney is referencing The Shining, it's pretty iconic.
You got a cult classic on your hands.
If everybody's referencing at that point. Yeah.
You know it's that important. So.
And that's what I would say. Like The Shining definitely is a cult classic. It's probably the poster child of a cult classic, I would say.
Especially at the early 80s. Because really, in a way, The Shining is like the last horror movie that has some semblance of like a 70s feel into that movie right before they officially moved on from the 70s style.
Yeah. It came out in a perfect time because it was right at the beginning of like the mad horror craze. Yeah. But it was also like, I would lump it in. I know it came out in 80, but I would still lump it in with those OG, like, with Texas Chainsaw, with The Exorcist.
Yeah, those classic 70s.
With Halloween, you know what I mean? Like, in that group, Jaws, in that group of 70s films,
It had more of that 70s vibe anyway to me, when it
did.
Out.
And again, I don't find it, I've never found it particularly scary. No. It's just more atmospheric and creepy and eerie and,
makes
like,
you uncomfortable.
It makes you feel uncomfortable.
You feel like you're at the hotel yourself, when you're watching.
Yeah.
You feel the isolation. You feel the fact that it's a slow burn, But yeah, man, it's an incredible film. I have a feeling there's a whole lot more conversations to come on this channel, at least.
Hey, Brettman, when you did that that home alone skit with Brad, when that scene where Pennywise wants to eat Georgie, that could be happening right at The Shining too.
Oh my God, I would have no doubts about that. So.
I could just switch the location and I could see that.
Oh my gosh.
But we are about 2 hours and 5 minutes in, so we're going to go ahead and start to wrap this up. Big show. thank you all so much for joining us. Everybody in the chat, you've been amazing. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave this one a like. And if you're not, I think everybody here probably is, but if you're not subscribed to Good Real Hunting or to Flett's Movies and Pop Cultures 13, please go subscribe to them. I know you all just had the Real Horror Awards too, which you may see two stupid assholes in it too. But
I think we did that early on. So
presenting best trailer. But that was really cool. Is there anything you guys want to throw a reference out to? Plug in.
Oh, you first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Wait, where am I? Thank you, Brett. There you go.
I'm gonna be real. I wondered what you were doing. I was like, is Brad
doing
pop
that,
out
looking around,
I'm doing my boy Kyle over here. I see.
Yeah,
There.
I clicked in. I finally clicked on what he was doing.
Yeah, I even got shining power on here on StreamYard too.
High five then over there.
Of course it didn't work. Well, never mind. There it is. So.
But no,
I love that.
So I'll plug it out. So on 18th, I'm bringing on Michael from Wolfman from Mega Movies. We're doing a David Fincher ranking. We're ranking all his films. So that's gonna be a lot of fun to just discuss. There's so many good ones. And then on the 26th, I'm gonna bring it on Kevin Ball. I'm gonna be interviewing him. He was the stunt double for the original Creeper in Jeepers Creepers, and he's also stunt double for Matt Dillon in Wild Things. And he's stunt double for many other things. He's done stunts in Terminator Genesis, and so many other amazing iconic films, and Bad Boys too. So I'm going to be interviewing him. And once I go off, there's something I want to tell you three what I'll also be doing, but I can't tell it here yet. So,
okay.
Secret.
So you guys get the first hear from me. You guys get the first hand hear from me. So,
no, man, I'm glad that you're the one that's interviewing the stunts guy, because I would be the inappropriate one, because all I would talk about is that one particular scene in Wild Things.
Oh yes, gotcha. I know what you're referencing right off the bat.
Yeah, I know. I'm a dirty prick. So.
And I know you're a fan of Denise Richards. I knew that when I first met.
Yeah, she's a goddess to me. She's one of my crushes of all time. So.
Definitely. So, and also on I think the 24th, I'm going to be bringing on Lauren from Online's Horror. Lauren will be discussing our top found footage films. So that'd be a lot of fun to discuss.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So stay tuned for that, and and also some other videos coming up. So.
Cool.
So
Brad,
okay,
anything else?
Pretty much we're just because again, like you referred to, we're kind of in the recovery mode from the Real Horror Awards, because a lot of hours went into bringing that whole show, and I'm just so tired. I'm just trying to catch up on my sleep this week of all the sleep on that. So we're just going to take it easy on Thursday at 8:00 Eastern time with just a simple Q&A. We'll just hang out with everybody. Hopefully we'll talk more about my Chiefs until the chat complains about don't talk about sports, talk about horror movies, and then we'll transition into that. And then the big next project we got going on is the Real March Madness tournament. This is the third tournament we're doing, the Real March Madness. Pretty much it's a 64-team movie tournament to determine the best movie of all time of that particular topic. We're not ready to reveal it just yet, because we are currently building the bracket with the 64 movies we're going to include. But the only hint I can give you, it'll be explosive.
Nice.
It's best porno, right?
Damn it! You're the third person if I fucking said that. Like,
that's gonna be explosive on that channel.
Am I just like when I say explosive, am I saying it in a sexual way or like?
Yeah,
what am I doing? Woo! Yeah, you know what? Or how about this hint? It has the money shot.
Oh, that's even worse.
Jeez.
That's terrible.
Okay, we'll go back to explosive. So, like, it'll be explosive. It'll be what we call action pack and all that kind of fun stuff.
Love it, man. Love it.
Awesome.
Very cool. Once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, subscribe to their channels if you have not already. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at LTM Podcast KY. We do new shows every single week. And we love you so much. Have an awesome, awesome, awesome rest of your week. Take care, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.